Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. My guest today is one of very few people returning for a second conversation. Kelly Young, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good.
Fantastic. Good. You look like you've been out. You've got a little bit of colour in your cheeks in the cold Auckland day.
Yeah, it has, It's a little bit chilly out there, although I'm still rocking around in shorts and t-shirt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good.
Excellent. I have to say, I caught your stories on Facebook this morning, and you were talking about doing the hard stuff even when you don't want to. And I suppose on a cold day that makes it a little bit harder. And you got out there, got your run done, and your day is off to a great start.
Yeah, hard out. That's one of my biggest things, and especially over probably the last few years that I really incorporated into my life now is doing the hard stuff and pushing through that, because I've gone through some hard stuff over the last couple of years. A lot of it I tend to do it myself so that I can learn the tools and I can understand how my body works when you are put under pressure, so that when pressure does hit you, you can face it with the same mechanisms as what you do when you do the hard stuff yourself, voluntary, if you know what I mean. And so but no, a lot's gone on in life. So I think we were just talking before we jumped in here, just when we last spoke, and it's been a 2-year gap, and it's just amazing how much can actually go on in 2 years that can be completely life-changing. So yeah.
Fantastic. I'm quite excited to dig into that, because I have been following your journey and watching mostly through social media, which, I suppose is the most easy way to do it. But so tell us some of the highlights, some of the lowlights. What are some of those things that have occurred over the last couple of years that you're happy to share?
Happy to share. Well, I guess in a way, last time I spoke, I had owned a gym. So I was, I can't remember what year we were coming into, but last year we gave that up, and it was 6.5 years of owning a gym. Now, to put a bit of context in, because I talked a little bit about it, but I guess I think last time you got all the highlights of it. But you put a bit of context into the whole journey of business owning and gym owning. When we first originally set up with the business plan, we actually went in with business partners. Right. And I was heavily relying on that part as part of the journey, because I did have young kids. So they were all 3 kids under 5. And I had gone through my own sort of mental health challenges from transitioning into motherhood, as it was something that didn't really naturally come to me. I had to really learn my style of being a mother, and how I wanted to show up in that arena. And so it took me a few years to really adjust mentally to that lifestyle. Because previously to that, in any times of need, if I needed to sort of jump ship and change a career or change the trajectory of my mindset where I could go, I could just pack my bags and up and go and make it exciting. Whereas obviously with motherhood, you can't. You're in the grind. You've got to stick with it. And it's very similar to having a business as well. A business is like having a baby. And so when we first set up the business plan, it was me and my partner aligned with another couple. Now, really early into the business, the other couple no longer worked out, and so it was us left in with one of the couple, and it changed the business foundations quite quickly. Now, we understand business plans don't always go to business plan how you set it out when you start. And so that was our challenge, and we pivoted quite quickly with that scenario. And then a year in, that other business partner no longer wanted to be a part of it, which was their decision. And me and my partner looked at each other, and I remember to the day we kind of looked at each other and thought, shit, this wasn't the plan, but should we give it a crack? And I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. If I get my teeth stuck into something, I'm not going to let go until I've gnawed every little part of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, yep, we can do this. You know, now when I look back at it, the whole plan was to have that support network of business owners working together, because I knew I had my 3 children under 5, and I knew I was still working on my mental health. It's a journey, I believe. It's not something, especially if you've gone through challenges with your mental health. I believe that you can never overcome it. You've got to continuously work on it. You know? And so I was very much aware of that. However, we took it on, and I gave it everything, and we grew the business. Just borderline our 3 years of operating, we got it into a profitable business.
Right.
I hit the magic number that everyone wants in terms of memberships in a gym, and it was thriving. And then obviously, like many businesses, COVID hit. And that's in that period where, in such a short time, I think it was over 6 weeks, because the sort of rumors about this big virus going out was out in the community, and we started seeing a lot of freezes, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of cancellations, and just watched those numbers deteriorate through my fingers. And for me, it was all that hard work kind of go through your fingers, and us sort of go, shit, this is not in our business plan. We never ever thought this could come. You know. So it was actually a blessing in disguise when the old powers above closed all the businesses down and just put a cease to all of that. However, throughout that period of our lockdown, we had friends that were like bored, they were baking up a storm, they were watching movies and family time. And with me and my partner, that was completely the opposite. It was like, how do we keep our members engaged? How do we go from having a physical brick and mortar business and turn everyone over to online? And we didn't have a franchise that supported that online basis, so it was a really figure it out yourself. And me, I was like, I did a brick and mortar business because I wasn't technically sound for the online world. You know, I wanted physical clients, and so it was a real massive mind shift. So every day we were learning something new, and it was uncomfortable all the time. And every day I said to my partner, look, one thing that I can do, and I can do this to keep people engaged, and even not just my clients, but anyone who wanted, I just did a free live workshop, workout every single day while we were in lockdown on Facebook. And I just put it up, and anyone could jump on. And we had a huge following on that. And we had heaps of people jumping on, and huge amounts of messages saying, people going, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for you guys, I don't know where my mindset would have been and everything. That really kept me going, because that's the whole reason why I do what I do. And so, however, in that process, I was burning the candle at both ends. You know, just keeping myself going. And I'm quite a high energy person as is, but there is still a level of where that high energy can go. And like I said, there was a whole lot of uncertainty all the time. So it was like turning up and not knowing a task. And so a simple task of, hey, let's do lives on Facebook isn't just as simple as, okay, cool, we just push the button and stuff. It's like, oh shit, now we need the phone to be set up certain, and people kind of need to hear us. And so you're constantly problem solving through all these challenges. And so we went through that process, and it was all good. And then we got to open back up, and I said to my partner, right, let's go again, start again, let's grow this. We started out slow, everyone was a little bit rocky, but then I just put 110% in it, at the detriment of my own sanity and my own mental health, also at the detriment of my family. They missed me. I was constantly at the gym. My kids were getting older, and they started saying things like, we hate the gym, mum, you know. And so that broke my heart, because I was kind of like, I'm not there for them. And one thing I kept sort of saying was, I'm showing up to improve other people's lives, but I've got these 3 little humans at home that I'm not putting any of my expertise, my knowledge, my love, my nurturing into them to grow their lives and improve their lives.
Yeah.
So it was this real sort of quarterness. My values were split, and I was going through a lot of those issues, but still my work ethic is, I look at it now and I go, it's through the roof. So I put on my big girl pants and I showed up and I bloody worked hard and I did it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my community, and that made me show up. And so I did that again, built it back up, and then we went back into that next lockdown. So each time it just took a bit of my soul, you know, and the showing up was getting harder and harder each time. And I probably started really noticing physical stuff going wrong with me. So I noticed a lot of my peripheral vision was getting quite starry at certain times. So just a lot of pressure. So all I'd see is just like little, that looked like, you remember the TV when the TV would go all black and white?
Like interference.
Interference, just interference on the side. So my peripheral vision was going, and then I started noticing tingling in the tips of my fingers.
Right.
And I used to wake up in the morning and my heart would just be racing. So the alarm would go off and my feet would just get straight onto the floor, and it felt like I'd run a marathon. But I just had it in my head, I just got to get through this day. I've got so much on my plate. I need to get this sorted. We've got to keep going. We've got this number we've got to get it to. We've just got to lift it back up, you know, because in those lockdowns, you've got finances going out. Nothing stopped in terms of paying leases, paying overheads, all of those things there. But all your income had stopped. So it was just this huge imbalance and a lot of pressure. And so I just kept going, and I sort of got to a stage. I also found I was starting heaps of jobs and I couldn't have the focus to complete them. And so I was just overwhelmed. And I'd get to the end of the day and I'd started all of these jobs that I needed to do, but I couldn't have that focus to see myself through to completing them. So it was all these little signs happening. And I went to the doctors and they said, oh, you've got hypothyroidism. Like, you're now on the borderline of having to be medicated for it. I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. I've never had anything in my life before, and I wasn't going to let that happen. So I sort of said, okay, cool, I'm not there yet in terms of medication. So let's try and get a handle on it. But no change. I had a job or a business that had huge overheads. You know, we still had these sort of in lockdown, out lockdown programs. We had that red light stuff happening. We wore on a lot of pressure of having to say no to clients that wanted to come and train when they were vaccinated. And that was huge for me, because that really had a cognitive dissonance in my belief system around stopping people from preventing
the thing, to help them through the challenge.
And mine was huge for mental health, and so that was a huge barrier. And I was just getting coming up against all of these value misalignments, you know, and my passion for the business plan that was not meant to be the business plan that we had originally set up for. No, there was a lot of value disalignment, like I said. And I was starting to go, what are the pros for me, my own health, for my family? What are the pros here? Because I was starting to see there was very few that we were getting back over that time. And so I don't know if I talked to you about last time. I don't think I did. I don't think I actually really went into depth, because to be honest, I'm only really getting to a stage where I'm being quite open and vulnerable around what mental health I did go through.
Yeah.
But I had a moment that was quite a significant moment where I'd had all these signs physically going on, and it was compounding and building up. I was drinking alcohol in the afternoons to self-soothe my stress level. That in itself was, we'll touch on the alcohol soon, because I've actually just gone 500 days.
I saw that. Congrats.
Yeah, which is huge. When we'll go back to that.
I'll make a note.
In the whys. But yeah, I was using alcohol as a real stress management tool. I'd come home, it would be like, have a glass of wine just to de-stress. But that was just compounding. And the anxiety, I was having huge panic attacks where I'd drive to the gym and I'd sit in the parking lot and just be like, how am I going to put a face on? Because I was always like, as soon as I show up, if I show up somebody, I show up 110%. So I was like sitting there breathing, like, how do I put my face on? And sometimes I felt like I walked in the gym and everyone's like thriving and pumping, and it was all just slow motion for me, because I was just like in my head going, oh my gosh, how are we going to keep it going financially? And so and people would probably say, some clients after it all, some clients turned around and said, oh, we noticed things, you weren't your perky self, or your smile wasn't in your eyes. But I was never one that took my shit to work, to business. It was always show up, I gotta make this work. And so so all these physical signs were happening, and I was like, shit, okay, I feel, and I used to say to Dave, I feel like I'm not coping. And we'd be like, okay, come on, just go for a good training session and do all the things that you need to do.
Beat yourself up a bit.
100%. And do all your things that this, that, the other. And this one moment happened when just something happened, and it was early hours in the morning. Staff couldn't turn up to work to open the doors. That was a huge thing for me, was that we always showed up. I had the kids at home. It was 5 a.m, and it just, my mind had just gone, or my brain had just gone, can't cope with this anymore. And they call it it's like a psychotic episode. Everything just shuts down. I can't quite remember the process. But I had a moment at home that turned really chaotic for a while. Dave was like, oh my gosh, Dave's my partner. He was like, what do I do? I was trying to self-harm. He was like, oh my gosh, shit. What do I do? It's 5 a.m. He's like, I'm supposed to be going to my job. And so he called the mental health line, and sort of he was like reaching out for help. What do I do? And unfortunately, they didn't come through well enough. And we had to he then had called my mum, and my mum was like, take her to hospital straight away. Took me into hospital. They saw what was going on, and they were absolutely packed with COVID clients, with just people inundated. It was right in the heart of that chaotic time. And one amazing nurse came out, and she said, there's actually a space where we live that you can go to, that have doctors there that work for this mental health. And Dave was kind of like, man, we drove straight past that place. And so anyway, she veered us in the right direction, went back there. They medicated me, which needed to, because my brain had just literally had been in fight and flight for so long that it had just gone, can't do this anymore. It's a little bit like PTSD. That moment where it just switches down. And like I said, even to this day, that morning it's blacked out. I can remember slight little parts of it, but it's very much a moment that I can't really remember.
I mean, that would be categorized as a trauma, right? In the same way you have a car crash, but you don't actually remember what happened, because your brain doesn't want to retain that memory in your conscious thoughts.
Yeah,
Awful.
100%. And so we went through the mental health care unit, ward like place. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but I'm going to say I didn't get the care I needed.
Cool.
I found it was very medicated driven. And I'd kind of went there a number of times. It was very chaotic at the time. They forgot me in appointments, and it was just quite like, for someone who I was being very vulnerable, I'd grown up in my life to always go, you know what, you deal with your own shit. We grew up in a rural farm family. Hearty. My dad was, in drainage, hearty family. It was like, if you had problems, you don't go and give everyone else your problems. You put your big girl pants on and you chuck a smile on your face and you get to work. Just work through it. So I had that mental ability, and so for me it felt real vulnerable to be like, how did someone who has the knowledge that I have in the fitness, health and wellness space, how did I get to this space? And here's me now having to go for help. So it was a real vulnerable moment for me. And so going through the mental health unit, it didn't care for that. And so went on some heavy medication, and I kept going back to my appointments saying, this is my lifestyle, and I know why I've gotten to this is because I couldn't handle the pressure. I've never been given the tools to understand my fight flight mode, my rest, digest. I don't have the tools. Now I can't ship my kids off and give me space, so they're in my life. So I'm dealing with 3 little kids, and I want to show up for them. I've got a business that I can't get rid of, and it's got huge financial challenges. I can't get rid of that. So this is my life right now. We had financial problems, so it was like, how can I manage this so that I can show up and deal with that pressure and not let that pressure overwhelm me and keep me in that fight flight. But it was falling on deaf ears, and it was all around just keep medicating. So that's what we did, because I understood that I'd gone through a massive trauma and I needed to get my brain into that calm recovery mode. And I don't ever poo on medication. I think it's huge. I think there's a space for it. However, I didn't want that to be the option. I knew I needed to have that as the start, and then I wanted the tools to be able to get me to a space where I wasn't reliant on the medication. And so that was my mindset going into it. That started that journey. It was a huge journey. That morning that episode had happened, it was the first time we had to close our doors for the day. So it was quite a public forum because everyone straight away was like, oh, what's happened, on social media. I think Dave put a message up straight away to say, hey guys, due to family circumstance or personal circumstances, we can't open our doors today. I'm not too sure. We couldn't, the staff weren't available or something happened there. And so it was really, the buck was left with me, and there was no way I was showing up. And like I said, Dave has his job as well, but he straight away went from his job, and they were amazing, so supportive. They said, you need to support her. And so, so it was quite a public forum. I felt. And we were so close with our members. They were our community. So they just cared. But for me, once again, it was a very vulnerable moment to go, shit, Kelly's not coping. Wow, this big, strong person that I'd perceived myself to be, and put myself in that expectation of you know, how people judged me, that was something I had to work through. So yeah, so that kind of started that. So that would have been, I think, around, me and Dave were trying to talk about it the other day to say, when did that happen? I think that was after the first lockdown. So I actually ended up taking a month, maybe 2 months. And like I said, Dave's company that he works for, they were so supportive. They gave him a sabbatical period of time where he went from his work and he actually came and ran the gym.
Yeah.
And I literally, in the first probably 2 to 4 weeks, was just caring for myself. It was a struggle to get up and shower, just do the basics, you know, and then it was really me just focusing on putting myself first, and then really putting my focus into my kids, because that was a value that I'd felt I'd lost. And so I wanted to just really fill me up, you know, really get me back into learning, you know, like loving me, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. The time that you had to almost neglect yourself ahead of the business needed to be reinvested back in.
100%. And so that's exactly what I did. And it got help in other ways. I saw a sports psychologist, and I think I talked to you about last time, meditation was huge, because I was in that fight, flight, freeze mode for so long. I needed to train the brain, because all it knew was just to be in that mode.
On.
To be honest, now doing the work that I've done, that's how my lifestyle was as a child, you know, was just, we didn't get taught any of that.
No.
And if you're in an environment that, you know, is challenging, then you learn how to stay in that fight, flight, freeze mode, and how to be in survival. But you don't get taught the tools, how to get yourself into a calm space, how to learn to deal with pressure and manage pressure, and still have all of those challenges in life. Because let's be honest, I love business. I love challenges, you know. There was a time in the moment where I thought, do you know what, maybe business isn't for me, entrepreneurship is not for me, maybe I just want to get a job, and maybe I just want to just not have any pressure in life. And then I started getting into a little bit of that mode, and with that was no good for me, because I became and it was a victim mindset. I became poor me. I became, life is hard. Everything's really hard. Oh, you know, you can sometimes catch the dialogue that people have around how hard life is, how hard this is, and I became so comfortable in being just not wanting to sort of grow or develop, because I thought if I was like this, maybe that's what I wanted to be. And I did that for a very short period of time. And then I was like, what the hell are you doing? There's no growth there, you know, because when life throws you a challenge and you're in that moment and life's hard, oh my gosh, life's really hard. And you just kind of feel beaten down. And it definitely didn't align with my values, having that mindset of, I just need to sleep in, I just need to rest, I'm real tired. I used to say all the time, I'm real tired. I'm tired all the time. I'm so tired. You tell yourself enough something.
Yeah. Your body believes it. Yeah.
Your body believes it.
But it's fair to say that you probably were, because, you know, as you say, you've been in that fight or flight for so long, your body needed that repair mode more than it normally would do.
Yeah. And so that was the thing. I'd gone through that, but then I kind of stayed with that for a long period. There was like a moment where the and everything that I've done and everything that I've gone through had to happen to be the person who I am today. There is no regrets in it. However, I stayed in that moment for a long time, and I started sort of going, you know, looking at different options in life, I was starting to think, is, the career path that I've always been in with health, fitness, wellness, is this the career path for me? And I started questioning all those things. However, then all of a sudden, through all of it, kind of, instead of digressing from the story, we opened up the business again, and I stepped back into it. Or Dave stayed with the business, but I stepped back into it, and I had a bit of a lease of new wind. I said, okay, come on, let's focus. I've done this before. I can grow it again. We changed a few things within the business and tried a number of things, but I never showed up again how I did at the start. My passion wasn't there. My belief around the prioritizing of what I wanted for my wellness first, my children and my family second, and then the business, this structure didn't work for it. It wasn't. And like I said at the start, the whole business plan was never for it to be solely left on me and Dave. And we knew it wasn't going to work for our family that way. And so we pushed again and grew it a bit. And then we got to a point where Dave just looked at me and he sort of was like, you know what? My fear of failure was holding me in there, because I was like, if I let this business go, I've failed. However, I needed to have the courage to say, do you know what? Actually, me letting this business go is me then moving and progressing on to where I knew I needed to be.
Right. Yeah.
There was a lot of values within the brand, within the business, within the way it ran and our household, and where I wanted my coaching to go that no longer align.
Sure.
And I think when you've got a business, there's so much more holistically that needs to align for it to be successful than just punching numbers, just having KPI targets and everything like that. There's a lot of holistic involvement involved. And I do believe that is necessary in a fitness industry, because you are the product of what you're coaching. And so it was a real challenging one that decision we had to make, and we turned all stones and everything. And I won't go too much into the whole progress of how we got out and stuff like that, but we did shut it down last year. And it was, as soon as we made the decision, it was like this whole weight off our shoulders had gone, and I'd just gone, do you know what? And it was a progress that was amazing, because probably about the fourth year I'd said to Dave, I wanted to shut it. I was like, this is not working for us. I said, my heart's no longer there. It's with the community and with the clients. And if I could just grab the community and just go, cool, I'm going to put it over here, but do the coaching I like to do. Then I would have just gone boop. But and that community kept us going for so long. But I had to go through what I needed to go through to be at peace, and to have worked on my limiting beliefs, to work on my fear of failure, to work on not being good enough, to work on fear of judgment, all of those limiting beliefs. I had to have gone through what I've gone through and learned so much, because I think if I'd pulled the pin earlier without learning the struggles and learning the hard lessons, I wouldn't be as strong of a business owner, a coach, a mum, myself, without really enduring what I've learned by hitting that rock bottom and going, do you know what? I need to change, and I need to learn how to handle pressure. I need to learn how to not fear failure, welcome that into my life and see it as opportunities. I need to learn how to not worry about people's judgment, because this is my journey. And I'm going to show up how I want to show up, that aligns with my values. I needed to learn my values and my belief system, because the values and belief system is what really shows up in your actions, your thoughts, your emotions and feelings. That's the underlying cursor. And as soon as you go against them, that belief system, you have that cognitive dissonance
mm,
where,
mm.
and for so long I had that with my business, where deep down in my heart showing up, I was like, oh man, like this is hard. This is not where I want to be.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
put on my face and keep
yeah.
going.
Mm,
And you know, that's where that's
Quite
where
a
shit goes away.
quite a process, and so good that you're able to see that so clearly now, and how that's stood you in good stead for what you're doing now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but it was a crazy journey. And I do sit there now from what I went through and understand with that, that mental trauma, how what people go through in those
Mm,
really dark
mm.
times.
And imagine the number of situations that you could, over that period of time, how many business owners were in exactly the same or a very similar boat to you. And we've all either experienced it ourselves or come across other people who have experienced it, and it was tough yakka. They were working extra hard to keep things going, the people they employ, etc., etc., and then balancing their own lives and coming out the other side of it. That doesn't seem to have slowed down much, in my opinion.
And still now, like estimate there's another how many businesses to still liquidate or shut down. It's really challenging. So I sit there and I can really resonate and understand the pressure that business owners and just people are going through. But also to know that with hard work, you can totally transform your mindset to be able to handle the pressure. And that is why I do what I do now, which is working through that inner bitch that you have, because it really is your relationship that you have with pressure, your relationship that you have with your belief system and how you're showing up in your actions, and just the lack of awareness around those. And to know that it does take a lot of hard work, and you've got to show up and do the real boring stuff that is not glamorous, day in, day out, to put in the work to really transform your mindset. But I can hand on heart sit here now and say I have never felt so calm, so content, so at peace, and still show up and do some really hard shit. Like what I'm doing now is just as challenging as what I've had with owning the brick and mortar, whereas now I do all my coaching online, so it brings a whole nother element. I said to you before, I'm not someone that originally would gravitate to being online because it's not my area of expertise. But every day I push myself through challenges of learning new platforms, understanding it, coming up with content, all of those things. But doing it in a way that, pressure comes on and I'm like, okay, I know what to do here. I know why I might be thinking, or why my central nervous system might elevate in a certain way, and I understand why I go into that mode, and I can easily stop myself in that mode and go, okay, I know what I need to do now to center myself again, and to put the tools in place to go, okay, I've got this challenge in front of me, I need to do X, Y, and Z to work through it.
Brilliant. So powerful. And knowing your triggers, knowing what pushes your buttons, so that, as you say, those are part of the tools that you can employ, so that you don't stay in that fight or flight and head down that slippery slope again. So tell us a bit about Release the Beast coaching.
Yes. So basically it was all came down to the mindset. And when I owned my gym, I really wanted to dive deeper into that area. However, in a gym kind of setting, it's kind of people come in for that reason, get done, get out, churn out. So with Release the Beast, I actually created Release the Beast where I had the brand, had the gym, and I did it as a 6-week, 8-week program, and took people through it, and saw a huge transformation in the mindset around why do people do what they do when they know what they know. And basically really is just me unfucking people's mind, because we stand in our way so much to be able to get to our full potential. And I saw it in my life the whole time. I would get to a point in my success, in my career, in top level sport, even things like MasterChef, like all of these achievements that I had, I would get to a level, and as soon as I could feel myself coming into fear of failure, being judged by others, or not being good enough, I would go, do you know what? I'm not going to push myself any further because I do not know how to deal with this pressure. Right. And I would jump ship and start again, the process in something else, and I'd climb again. Whereas having the business, and like I said, not cutting it short at 4 years and pushing it right through to 6.5 years, was that boundary of me really pushing that level. I wouldn't ideally say to people, go and do that and go through the process of what I did, because it was quite a, quite a traumatic process for the family and for us. But we were lucky that it has created the person I am today. So Release the Beast really does dive a lot into the mindset, to being able to people to work on that inner critic, that inner bitch that they have inside, that prevents them from overcoming any habits that they've got that holds them back. It allows them to live a life that is full potential, and not just living a mediocre life that is held back through fear, that's held back through lack of self-confidence and body image, lack of self-belief in themselves. And so the tools I work on really dives into the mindset. We work a lot on trauma, on past trauma, and how to overcome that and let go of things. We work on a lot of setting goals. What does the big future look like? And actually putting practical steps in place to be able to achieve the bigger goals, but putting it into a timeline. Work on simple things like planning, allowing people to have that plan that fits the real holistic overview of making sure we're moving our body in the right way, making sure that we're fueling our body in the right way to get to the outcome of where we want to go, making sure that we're feeding our mind in the right way, so that we're working on that self-belief, limiting beliefs, understanding our belief system, and in teaching people the tools about what actually happens in the brain when certain things happen, and why do we respond like that. Because there's a lot of past responses that you've had in your body as to why you respond, how you respond today. And if you're not aware of it, and it's quite, funnily enough, it's actually quite simple work that I do, but it's really powerful. But then the tool comes in around accountability, showing up daily, doing hard stuff. My thing is do hard shit. Push yourself daily to do the hard, the suck, I say, because it teaches you how you respond in pressure, but you're in a controlled environment. And then when you do have challenge thrown at you, that life throws all the time, because we don't expect us to be happy 24/7. It's unrealistic. It's being able to go, okay, I've got a perspective when life throws challenges at me, that I have a problem-solving mind that goes, okay, I can see the perspective around why this is happening, but I can control myself internally and externally on how I handle with pressure. And so Release the Beast, I do a lot of one-on-one at the moment, and I take people through a 12-week program, which is more of a short stance that I say. At the moment, I'm planning a 12-month program where I'm going to take through a group of people at the same time on an experience, because I do believe the process is in time. It's not a quick fix. There is no quick fix out there. It's putting tools in place and constantly going through the different challenges life throws at you. Same as, like, huge example now is winter. People go transitioning from summer to winter, and the winter blues people have right now. You know, a lot of people are going through a bit of a mindset where it's harder to train. They start to eat a little bit off track. They're now starting to snowball into a little bit of an effect. So looking at a 12-month program over it is making sure that people go through those transitions but can still adjust. And like I said, it's not adjusting perfectly, but it's being able to have the awareness around why we do what we do when we know what we know, and being able to catch ourselves from spiraling, and actually just being able to pivot slightly, make small adjustments in life that keep you moving forward. And so that's that. What else? We're just got a workshop planned coming up. Me aligned with another coach, and so that's on the 25th of August, which is going to be really exciting. And that's teaching people around being able to perform under pressure, having that human performance. So all the keys that are kind of talked about. So that's quite cool. It's a full day immersion that they'll be doing. And I also work for Nick Gill, who's with the All Blacks. I work for his Rugby Ready, which is an online workshop or online program for up and coming professional rugby player, or up and coming rugby players, professional rugby players, and they all jump online with him to do his specific coaching that he does. I do the mental skills coaching for the group, and so that's been a real cool opportunity for me to be able to step myself now into the high performance side of things, which is something that I want to sort of head more into as I grow and develop. Really, it's about just helping people with their mental skills and becoming high performers in their life. I call them everyday athletes.
I love it. Where did you pick all those tools up? Are those the tools that you've learned for yourself, or have you sort of dipped into other programs to pick up some of those things?
A real mixture of all. So dipped into other programs, a lot of real business mindset work, a lot of the mental skills that I develop and coach crossover from sports, high performance, right through to business as well, right through to your everyday life. Like, we see it huge now in our kids and the performance and mindset they have, and what they talk about is, it's amazing. And the resilience that our kids have through them learning from us, from watching, and from the dialogue that we talk about with them. So these tools fit into all areas of your life. And so learned them through a whole lot of programs that I've done myself, through other people, through seeing sports psychologists, through doing a lot of holistic learning. Holistic learning's huge, and I think it has a real powerful weight behind it when you pair it up with a bit of scientific learning as well. And then through a lot of practice on myself, and now a lot of practice on my clients, that is seeing huge results, and just looking at it all and mapping the blueprint together from what works in all areas. So it's a real holistic overview that I do, because if you're not feeling good within yourself physically and mentally, and then you want to really jump over here and create, jump into a new career, create a business, start a family, get into a new relationship, all of those things, have financial wealth. All of that has an element of some form of pressure that if you don't work on certain things and they show up, and you start to go down the route that I did, where I just wore the pressure on me, just keep pushing through. Yeah, I was training. I was eating well. We haven't touched on the alcohol, but I was drinking alcohol, you know, as a coping mechanism. And yeah, so basically just putting those tools in. Once you work on yourself holistically, then when you put the tools in to work on your goals through following the process, setting the goal, understanding your why, your core belief system, setting the plan, showing up daily, doing the hard work, you and out of that you start to really succeed. You start to live your potential, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. Go back to the alcohol. We were going to touch on it. So did you say 300 or 500? 500.
500.
Yeah.
500 days. Now,
nice.
touching on it briefly, but yeah, no, it's in the culture that we live in, like, and especially I think my generation, it was in our life from day one. Parties, you're surrounded by it. You, like, I think I've even got a photo of me as a little kid, like a real little kid, sitting around, and I'll try and find the photo, sitting around behind the fridge at a party, trying to get all the drips out of the beer bottles, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just a culture, like, you just thought it was the norm. So, you know, at a young age, started drinking, binge drinking. It was quite a huge part of our teenage years. We had massive parties. They were shore parties on the shore. I had some great fun, but it was part of life, really. So I didn't really ever lay off it for all the way through. Then had obviously had 3 pregnancies, so did drink over those periods, and then did challenges here and there where it was like 12 weeks, little stints. But even though we had some great times, absolute great times, there was also a lot of times that were dark times over it. They used to call me PK, which is Party Kelly. I'm an all or nothing kind of girl. So I was the last person always standing. I grew up with brothers. So yeah, I was a menace, an absolute menace. But I'd still show up the next day because the work ethic in my family showed up, and you still pulled through and did it. But it's a hard mentality to go through when my belief did not align with it. I still felt like, you know, for a long time I'd been like, I wish I didn't drink, you know, but it was just a habit. And I guess in a way I'd never learned how to socialize without it. And I also suppressed a lot of emotions through alcohol. Because if I was stressed, that was a coping mechanism. Have a wine, have a couple of wines. But then that would lead to me being unproductive, because then I'd be absolutely tired. Stuff wouldn't get done. Then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go, oh, why'd you do that? Not only that, I trained hard, and here I am knowing the outcome of drinking. It was not working. But so I made a decision where I'd been thinking about it for a long time. It had been a little voice in the back of my head for quite a few years, and the space of having fun while drinking on alcohol the window got smaller and smaller. I used to be, you know, anxious leading up to going out because, like I said, I was an all or nothing type of girl, and I think, you know, I'd say, oh, I'll just have one. That never worked. So I'd get quite anxious leading up to the night if we were going on a, you know, big night or something, of, ooh, what kind of night could this turn into? I would have severe blackouts, and I never knew when that point was going to be. So there was no control. All your inhibition goes out the window. Right? And so the voice was in the back of the head going, you know, it's not working for you.
Give it up.
Give it up. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, well, oh, just one. You'd have mates. And then this one time I was just like, nah, I'm done. I actually did like 75 hard.
Okay.
I just went, you know what, I'm done. Let's jump into this. Bit of accountability for myself, and started the process. It was hard, but that's when I built all the tools that I had to incorporate that into the drinking. Like, how am I going to get out of this? And it is a process. I think if you are someone that has been thinking about this for a while and it has been a huge culture or a huge habit in your life, then there are tools that you need to implement into the journey you're about to take. Because if you don't set yourself up for anything, whatever habit you're trying to give up or trying to change in your life, if you don't set yourself up with a plan, then you are preparing and planning for failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a real plan of first understanding why you're about to do what you do, and then setting yourself a goal. Now, the one thing that I did do around it was I never gave myself, I've never said I'll never drink again, and I still want to say that, because even saying it is a pressure on sort of, oh, so right now I just say it doesn't work for me, so I don't see it in the future, but I never say never. And also I never put pressure on the period. It was like working for, first 75 days, I was like, okay, cool, that's my goal. And then just working on the step-by-step process. The one thing that I always had to do was knew when my trigger times were, when I felt like, you know, and I'd gotten into a little bit, I'd gotten into a little bit of a habit of after work, get home, have a glass of wine while I had dinner kind of process. I wasn't a raging alcoholic throughout the week. You know, it was nothing like that, but there were times in my life it got bad as the stress grew. So I needed to know the warning signs of when that trigger was, when I felt like I needed it. And then I needed to fill that time with something that was productive. So I did, for me, it was physical activity. So training. It was a whole bunch of either doing a stretch routine to jumping on my elliptical to going for a run. Obviously, having 3 kids in a business, you had to be very aware of how to manipulate that. But I had the support of Dave. So that's another thing, having support in your house.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, it would be really challenging if you're trying to give up a habit like that if you've got a partner that drinks as well. I'm very fortunate that he doesn't drink hardly at all. And so, you know, so there's a lot of tools and a lot of sort of planning that can set you up for success. I think if you go in and just try and dive in to do it, it's without thinking about it, I think it would be really hard, really challenging. And so I was really fortunate that once again, I could put all the tools of what I teach in place to set me up for success in that. And it set me up for success in 75 Hard, because that's got a real huge fail rate. If you look at it. And I did the whole 12-month program. It's not just 75 Hard. It was a massive program, and I stuck fully to it. But I believe the success came in the tools that I teach to set yourself up for any goal that you set. Right?
It's all applicable to so many other areas, isn't it? Not just about being alcohol. It could be anything, and those strategies are so versatile.
100%.
Oh, congrats! That's huge. We had a similar alcohol journey in our household, and there's so many similarities with your story in terms of what you did and how you did it. And I was very strong on that. I'm not going to never say never, because I felt if I tied myself down to never, then I would always be fighting it. Whereas actually it's easier to say no, even though I'm not saying never. It works.
Certain little things. And it's the same. I believe it's the same when you're doing especially if you're doing a really challenging stage in your fitness journey. is that the wording that you put around certain things, if you're restricting yourself in some way, shape, or form, is really important and really powerful. But yeah, no, never say never.
Language is very important.
Yeah.
If people are interested in finding out a little bit more about Release the Beast, how can they find you, Kelly?
So they can find me on my website, which is just releasethebeast.co.nz. Contact me through there. I'm heavily probably more involved on social media through Instagram, where I do have a Release the Beast handle. Is that what they call it? Is that what they call it? Handles?
I believe so.
I think one of my kids said it to me the other day. He said, "What's your handle, Mum?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean, what's my handle? What's your handle?"
Generational difference.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Funny, eh? Or there's my personal one that I use quite a bit, which is more public, which is Kelly is Forever Young.
Okay.
And that just shows my journey that I have. But yeah, no, that's how they can reach me.
I like it. Okay, cool. That's great. Thank you. I might, if I can't find those, I'll get you to drop them to me, and I can add them into the show notes.
Yeah, cool.
Brilliant. Cool. It's been so good chatting, Kelly, and catching up, and really interesting hearing your, where you're at now compared to when we talked 2 years ago. And I think I will encourage people to listen to that first episode first and play them in sequence, because it's phenomenal what you've been through, and you've been very vulnerable sharing everything that you've been through as well. So it's much appreciated. And I think there'll be a lot of value for people. Yeah,
no, I definitely say, I think, I probably know hand on heart. I haven't actually gone back and listened to it, and I'll probably go, oh gosh, what did I say? But one of the biggest things that I've had to really open up about is being vulnerable and actually really sharing it, because so many people can put on a face that everything's all good, and I did that so well. My partner used to say, "Oh my gosh, it's a real good game face you had," like literally. And it was cracking. We were cracking up. We were talking about the other day, even in the lockdowns, and we did the Facebook lives. Sometimes we would be bickering at each other, had a little squabble and everything, and right to the point where I'd press live. And I'll be like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And Dave's in the background sweeping, because he knows that if he starts talking, he doesn't do the filter. He'll tell you how it is. He's like, "Hey guys," and he's out the back sweeping, just thinking, "I want to probably smack you with this broom." Smack you with it, But and it was a great coping mechanism that I had. However, let's just sort of go, I wasn't coping. I wasn't coping. And so
it's interesting, isn't it, how often some of our biggest strengths in other situations can be our biggest weaknesses.
100%. And that was exactly it. So I might actually even need to go and listen to it as well, and just sort of go, oh gosh, because I probably wouldn't have been vulnerable with you at all.
I think you should, because you'll be able to see very, very clear, or listen or hear very, very clearly just how far you've come. Phenomenal. Yeah.
Now I say share. As long as you sit there and you don't just there's that line of sharing so much that you don't do anything to fix. And that's that victim side of sharing. That's poor me, over sharing to say, I'm sharing because hopefully it gives other people inspiration that no matter how bad your mindset is, you can change it. You can fix it. We can rewire it. And it's so amazing on the other side. Like it's like you have broken free from jail inside your head.
Yes, huge. Absolutely huge. I like your iceberg behind you with the motivational stuff below the waterline, and is it? I'm assuming it's success above, and you've got all that stuff.
Success up the top that everyone sees, and no one sees all the hard work underneath. And I
such
love
a great metaphor
now that so many amazing influencers and entrepreneurs and people that are leaders are sharing the vulnerable moments, because I think you have to. And even now, so many people sometimes send me messages and say, you're so amazing, you're so strong and everything like that. But when I send a vulnerable moment, they go, oh my gosh, it's so cool to hear you say you struggle. I think you were talking about the run. You struggle to do it too. Yes, I struggle to do it, but I show up and I do the hard work, do the hard shit.
Yeah, and then everything else is just a little bit easier.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, brilliant, Kelly. Thanks for chatting. It's been awesome to catch up again, and maybe we'll do a third one in a couple of years.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see. Onwards and upwards from here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
See ya.
See you later, Rich.